He's, Rotunda is a badass, man. We don't have the audio of this match, but we're going to go through and break it down and analyze it. But Tony Schiavone on the opening makes fun of Death Row's outfit. They said, "Oh yeah, they wrote his prison number on the magic marker on the back and let him out for a couple hours." Basically saying his outfit looked like it was just thrown together last second. And yes, it looks like he just came from pretty much day one orientation of wrestling school and nothing after that, and decided to put him on TV.
So if I've watched this, I've watched it only maybe once, and I don't remember what happened. So, like me, and I imagine a lot of the people out there are going to be watching it for the first time. So, Stevie, what went wrong?
Let me ask you a question about that before we get into the actual video. Do we play the JR? He recounted everything. We were going to react to JR's, because somehow the algorithm, after all these years, I thought it was a new clip from Grilling JR, but because this past week, everybody's been sharing this in the wrestling world. So I don't know why the algorithm picked it up after so many years. You said it's like 3 or 4 years old.
Yes, it's 3 years old. I've teed it up to, it's only a short video, but it's like 1 minute 36 in. So if you want to get JR's comments, just bear with me 1 second.
It reminds me of the old cliche, don't confuse kindness as a weakness.
Right.
Rotunda, such a nice guy, total pro. But you take one live round, okay, he potatoed me. I got sent to Spud City, and then he does it again because he thinks he can get away with it, and get over, and then that didn't flush. So, like I said, Mike Rotunda is a tough guy. Hey, look, you don't play at a Division I school of great significance like Syracuse without being a tough son of a bitch. You can't go through all the wrestling workouts. People that don't follow amateur wrestling ain't got a clue how hard that is. Isolated men in a small facility and beating the shit out of each other, and wrestling for the major school against the best competition in the world, and then you're playing on a big-time football program and playing. You're starting. I think Mike was a defensive end or defensive tackle. So he was a tough guy.
Yeah.
But he's such a nice guy, Conrad.
Right.
That got confused sometimes. So I vaguely remember that, quite frankly. But it was all during that time there in late 1990 that they kept looking for something for Mike to do.
Well, they're going to find that.
Well, yeah, but you can't get over changing your direction every week or two. People get confused. And look, pro wrestling, even though it's a big part of your life and my life, without question. But a lot of people don't look at it that way. They look at it as an entertainment outlet.
Sure.
And it's as simple as that. And so when it gets confusing to follow, or you got to try, you asked me to explain the Triple Tower of Doom. I think that match is too hard to figure out, and nobody gave a shit about it.
Man, JR is so smart, man. For anybody who doesn't know or you're learning about wrestling, sorry to cut you off, but man, it can't be understated at all or overstated enough that that was like something when he put that, even with 31 years of experience and then doing this and trying to pay attention to every nuance and detail within the business, he just encapsulated the struggles of every wrestler trying to find their niche and why sometimes you need to be cooled off for a little bit. And we just can't throw you back out there a week or two later. That explains like so much. Even now, the light bulb goes off and things click to me from decades ago. That gave me goosebumps. That's an amazing like piece of advice to give you perspective. He did I can't even say it, from a promoter, a writer, a booker, a talent, an agent, a fan. Everybody could have just like gained a ton of knowledge from that sub 2 minutes from JR's podcast.
Was this around the time that Mike Rotunda was becoming a captain of a boat rather than a captain of the Varsity Club?
Yeah, the boat hat came after this. And then the captain of Varsity Club, where he really showed, he was kind of the IRS character, the same exact, he reminded me of, he reminds me a little bit of Swinger, just with that like constantly disgusted look on his face when he was like nothing ever made him happy type thing. And that's kind of like Swinger's like, oh, I call it the crash pad look, because we were at doing motion capture for SmackDown versus Raw, and every time they had asked Swinger to take a bump on the crash pad or do something, he was like, he gave the little snarl. And but that's what that reminds me of Rotunda's heel gimmick, which, man, Mike Rotunda was a babyface. Like you can see here, very vanilla, very milquetoast. And like JR said, that kindness is mistaken as a weakness, that he's not a really vicious, tough guy. But that came out when he was a heel, the true nature of his toughness. So, yeah, you got it for an amateur wrestler. And that's what went wrong when we go to the smart board here. People aren't going to really see much violence, because real violence is never over-exaggerated. The things that really hurt are, like in the UFC, a game of centimeters or millimeters of moving someone's neck and head. And he's twisting him up like a pretzel, but you don't see it because he's not yanking it like and going back and forth from one foot to the other, in a distance. It's literally just little bit, and we're going to see a thing here, and I'm excited to show it, not for Death Row, but for everybody out there. His little hand movement with the back of his hand against his head, planting down on the mat, and just it's like this much. He is torquing him so bad. Like, it's like a Stu Hart, like dungeon type of stretch. That's what I saw in this. So I'm going to switch the cameras here for you so James can see. And here we are. And the thing is, as we go through this, I included the entrance, which is great, because as Mike's coming down to the ring, you want to talk about unassuming. Like, if you were somebody looking at this and looking at Death Row and then Mike Rotunda, and like that Death Row guy's a million times tougher, because he just looks tough, and we're going to find out different, what went different during this segment. So here's Mike coming to the ring. That's Death Row. And there's Death Row. Hey, by the way, I want to say this. The budget must have really, really been enhanced here for WCW. You know why? Or NWA? Unlike Avalanche from last week's episode, you have all the letters. There's no W missing from Death Row or anything like that.
They could afford the E.
So they could. You know what? Right there. So they literally could only afford the E, like every other match for the enhancement talent. So good call, James. It's good fantasy booking. So here's Death Row with the marker right there. He's looking, like, if you look at this, it literally looks like Death Row is maybe the star, and Mike Rotunda, even though with the entrance, might be the enhancement talent. If you're just the eye test of looking at it, Death Row looks more like, oh, that's your standard monster in wrestling. Now, this dude, first of all, I know this is where I get a little bit like whatever, cannot lock up. Look how close he is to Mike's nose right there. That's like a Sandman lockup, or almost breaking your nose on the lockup type deal.
Is he crossing the center line? Is that the issue with the lockup? So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, what he's doing is when he does it, his right foot's coming forward instead of his left. Look, you got to match Mike could have kneed him right in between the legs. Do you see that? Mike's left foot and his right foot's right here, where his left foot has to be up and match. That's because when you do that, you're not gonna crack knees, you're not gonna knee anybody anywhere, and you're lined up. That's why when he locked up, it almost looked like he's kind of going around and locking up with him, like almost where he's gonna grab him in a right-handed headlock type thing. Yeah, it's completely wrong. So that right there, much like with Dutch, now Dutch says if somebody's got the laces out, they don't know they're green. This lockup just tells Mike Rotunda everything, that this is not going to be a night off, that he's going to have a struggle. And who knows before, if this dude was talking crap and being loud and obnoxious, and Mike's like, and he's like, this is what I'm going to do and everything. You know what I mean? There's people like that just are the loudest. But the quiet ones, like Mike and Fit Finley and everybody, those are the guys to look like the Simpsons episode. That guy's just standing there doing nothing. I want to see what he does. That's Mike Rotunda right here. The lockup here is at least his left foot's there, because if his left foot wasn't forward, death rows with the E and the W, he wouldn't be able to grab the headlock, which, by the way, I'm going to show you right here. Look at where his right elbow is. What in the world is this? Who headlock? Like what? The headlock is meant to torque down. So right there, Mike already knows too. He doesn't even know how to do a headlock correctly. That right elbow is up in the air. It's already like he knows he's not in for a night off. I keep saying that over and over again. Now, Mike took a terrible chance even taking a shoulder block from this guy. He could have came up and jacked him on the jaw, put the point of the shoulder into him. He could have done a lot wrong there. So that went there. Now this, you talk about like literally cannot run the ropes and then bounces off this rope. Look at his feet together. If that rope broke, dude, he would have just went just like that. As a matter of fact, I wish it did, because I feel bad that Mike had to endure this. It's almost like, you know what this is? There had to be a crop of guys, Mike Blackwell, this guy, and whoever else, that just felt like they're going to get their stuff in no matter what. Now, Death Row is coming from prison. I don't think his family's in the audience, so we don't know if that's the case. But to bump this crappy for somebody, you're not doing yourself any favors. So even if it didn't turn into a shoot, this dude should not be. I don't even know how he got the match. That would be my number one question for JR. Who booked him? Where did he come from? Was he an actual wrestler? Because what I'm looking at here, there's no I can't say, oh, he went to Power Plant or he went to the local Atlanta wrestling school. He has no fundamentals whatsoever. Nothing. It's like they took him, like they used to back in the day, actually. Terry Taylor and a lot of other guys, they would literally put him in the ring. Al Snow told this story on house shows and stuff, that the Andersons would stretch people in the ring, and if you survived that during the day, you might get a match that night. But you didn't know how to wrestle. You would just, even Hulk Hogan, I think, got in the ring well before he was ready to wrestle. I'm sure Dutch started kind of just getting in there. Jerry Lawler was super green, but I guess they had the it factor to some degree, that they saw something in them. I'm belaboring the point, but there's nothing with this guy. Whatever that was, I don't even know. I think he was expecting Mike to come out for an elbow. See? Look at that. Or he's just dancing. Look at that. There you go. Two-step. What song would you think he's dancing to?
The Birdie Dance. Oh, I'm not sure you know the Birdie Dance.
Here we go again.
Disco Duck.
Oh, the Disco Duck. I know that one. Okay. Either Mike didn't hear him. Mike shouldn't even be listening, because Mike should be calling everything at this point. But it seems like now the communication's broken down. That's usually what happens if you're charging stop, they don't come out or they don't move. Then you get into that little kind of scrum type of, we're trying to figure it out and talk together. But it seems like there's two different pages going on here about the match. This is a shoot right down on the left shoulder. Now, Mike, here, this is where, about a few seconds after this pause part, this is where I think he says something to the effect of calm down, settle down, take it easy, whatever it is. That's standard fare. What he's doing here is the match is completely broken down. The communication is broken down. Before anybody gets hurt and they start running around and ducking and bumping or anything, Mike is bringing him down, holding him down, telling him, work with me. So this is not a thing to dress down Death Row or anybody else. This is to reset the match and hopefully get it back on track. So it's actually Mike's doing him a favor and everybody by trying to shut the match down temporarily and say, let's work together and finish this thing without getting hurt. This is where, here it is. Now he's got the clamp here. When he lets go of the clamp, I'm going to show a little thing there, like I talked about, where he's torquing the neck just with that one hand. And this hurts. He's cross-facing. There it is. Now, see right here? He's making a fist against his head, and he's got him right under the chin. He's not choking him, but he's doing the thing of just, now if he turns his wrist a little bit, he's literally, it's kind of like a cauliflower ear, but on the jaw, he's just rubbing against the jaw and just working at. Watch right there. I got to slow it down. You see him? He's turning the fist up a little bit and just torquing his neck as, by the way, look at him, covering the mouth, covering part of the nose, taking his breath away. So he's doing, dude, this is why amateur wrestling, for the most part, doesn't get translated well in pro wrestling. But if you look at it correctly, he's working right here on him. He's sitting on him or laying on him. He's got this. He's past him with his body here. So Death Row has no leverage. That's why Mike can put the right hand down, torque this around here, and this is, dude, you could literally like superimpose Stu Hart over Mike Rotunda. And it's literally, this is the dungeon. And he's stretching him. Right there. He's got two hands trying to pull down, and he can't do it. And I don't think he's working. I think he's trying to get him to pull down off of covering his mouth. He's taking a breath right there. But look at him right there. It's such a small thing. Look at this is the hand motion right here. This is what I'm talking about. Right here. Watch when the hand comes up. The thumb. He's just twisting that wrist and causing him pain as he's covering his mouth right here. Rotunda is a badass, man. Holy God. Now he's trying to work with him, but he's clamping. Now Mike here, look at, he's riding him right on his hip. He has the, technically side control, but he's not side control like the UFC where he has it and they're both flat. But this dude's not going anywhere. Turns him over. He's totally, now right here, Mike could do anything he wants to him, but he's trying to work with him, but he's still holding him down. This dude's not calming down, because if he was calming down, Mike would tell him to get to the ropes, let him up, grab a headlock, do something in a pro wrestling sense. This is going on uncomfortably too long. Do you agree? Mm-hmm. Now, you know why I know this is a shoot as well? Mm-hmm. Which arm is he grabbing now?
Ah, right.
He's not working. He's not working. He's just taking whatever's there for him because the left arm is away. So he's taking the limb that's most available to him, which is not the one you work in American wrestling. And that proves right there. He now needs to really try to calm him down, almost not injure him, but rough him up a little bit with this hold to get him to calm down one last time. Look at that, dude. His face is now planted down into the mat. Once again, he can't catch his breath, so he can't breathe. That's what you do in amateur wrestling. In any fight, you're trying to take the breath away or cost them breathing or breaths so they can gas out quicker. Like what Logan Paul had said, that Floyd Mayweather was actually covering his mouth and stealing a breath here, stealing a breath there, and it adds up. So now I stretch, man, but that would, my shoulder might pop out. I got a good amount of shoulder mobility, but that's rough. So that guy's shoulder could have been stretched some ligaments and tendons. He's kind of going for a shoot pin right here. There's no kind of. He's trying to do in amateur wrestling, trying to kind of shoot a half or something to lay on him for the pin. Oh, there it is. Did you see that?
No, rewind. I didn't see it. Didn't catch it.
Okay, slow-mo. I'm going to do it in slow-mo. Watch the elbow come up and catch him. Slow-mo. See it?
Mm.
Get it to it now. Watch it come up and hit him. Oh! I'll zoom in a little bit on that. We'll replay it. It's a rough elbow, dude. Watch. Rotunda's a tough guy. And what does he do? Rotunda does this. Oh! left jab, like he just jabbed him right there. He gave him a pretty rough elbow there. He gave him a pretty rough elbow in the face. Mike's face right there is just like, now I don't know. That's right there. The face of somebody who was like, I'm a nice guy, but you know what? I have a limit too. What are your thoughts on watching that? The most unentertaining match you'll probably ever watch. And I feel bad for Mike Rotunda because his gimmick doesn't even allow for any type of excitement. It's kind of an amateur wrestling gimmick to begin with. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, well, there's two things. It's funny how when a wrestling match devolves into a shoot, just how boring it can be. Earthquake and Japanese guy, Tozawa? No, is it not Tozawa? Anyway, there was one in Japan.
No, I know you're talking about. I
think it was the guy who's in WrestleMania 7 as well at that point. It was like an
Akibono.
No.
Akibono was in WrestleMania with Big Show.
He was.
Oh, Tenru. Was it Tenru? Tenru was in WrestleMania 7.
Katao. Yeah, Koji Katao.
Also, there's Andre with that guy. Remember the great whatever where Andre knocked him out?
There was one with Andre.
Or was that Inoki? Inoki knocked him out, I think, right? Wasn't a guy not working with
No,
Inoki?
you're thinking of the great Antonio versus Antonio.
The great Antonio.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
That's the exception to the rule where a shoot fight is devolved.
Future episode.
Yeah, future episode.
But Andre shot on a guy too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Andre, if somebody wasn't working with Andre.
Yeah, this was like in 1986, and I believe he was quite drunk.
Dude, you think it would... Now that we're talking about it, it's like, I can't believe the number of times these types of things happen in professional wrestling. Most famously, too, even though it wasn't a complete, like, shoot, like we're talking about over in Japan with those types of situations, but I watched Tully Blanchard versus Shane Douglas, and I'm sure Shane talked about it. That was a terrible match between two fantastic workers, and they were just on different pages. I don't know the backstory of that or if there's any animosity, but it seemed like nobody, I mean, I know, I would guess it was more Tully didn't want to work with Shane as much as Shane didn't want to work with Shane wants to work with everybody. I mean, that's a personal thing, but I'd never seen Shane go into business for himself.
No, I think with the Tully Blanchard thing, it was, Tully had been out of business pretty much 5 years by that point. He wasn't in the shape he should have been. To do an hour-long match, and apparently Tully insisted on having an hour-long match. So that's why that devolved. But it was Akira Maeda with Andre the Giant. That was bugging me. I was also thinking there was a later one, and they were both middle-aged on an indie show, Jim Duggan and Matt Bourne.
Matt Bourne. I saw that, yeah. You want to shoot, brother? You want to shoot? And me out by the car, and I do remember that. What I was going to say, just to give Tully, I'd like one of the best workers I've ever watched as far as just a good old-fashioned heel. Him versus Magnum, Starrcade 85, the I Quit match with the chair, the stabbing, and the eye. And the other one that people don't talk about enough was him versus Terry Funk. I believe Halloween Havoc or Slamboree. I think it was Slamboree. Him versus Terry Funk. And they went at it, dude.
So, future episode then, eh?
I want to react to that. But Tully versus Terry Funk was literally something of viciousness, aggression, violence, without it being like super garbage. They were just fighting. These dudes were fighting and wrestling and struggling, and it was one of the best. Like, it's like Dutch versus Orndorff. Like Dutch versus Orndorff in WCW or NWA had the presentation and the pacing of this match we just watched, but with cooperation.
Perry Saturn versus Mike Bell. We've got to do that one.
Yeah. And that wasn't so much a, like what we're looking at now or the Mike Blackwell. That was Perry, I guess, misconstruing what Mike was doing as not selling and not bumping, and then he got angry.
Yeah.
And you interviewed Perry, so you know better than I do.
Well, Perry, I didn't ask him about that, but I've heard him talk about it before, where they were G'ing him up in the back, and they were G'ing up Mike Bell in the back as well, just to make something happen, basically. Just wind them up, say, oh, Mike Bell's going to go for you, and then Mike Bell say, they told Mike Bell, you really should get your stuff in on Perry, and then it all just evolved really quickly.
And then the office got mad at Perry and punished him afterwards.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
for what they did.
All of a sudden he's in love with the mop.